It had been a long week for Marcus Daniels. Between wrapping up a grueling project at the architecture firm and helping his sister move, he was finally looking forward to a peaceful Friday night in his new townhome. The place wasn't huge, but it had everything he needed: open living space, a modern kitchen, and most importantly, a shared backyard with a hot tub. It was a small slice of paradise he allowed himself after years of disciplined saving. Marcus wasn't flashy, but he did enjoy the little luxuries: quiet, privacy, and a warm soak under the stars after a stressful day. He had moved into the community 3 months ago, and from the beginning, he'd noticed one person who stood out. Her name was Karen, literally. Karen Whitman. She was the self-appointed queen bee of the Homeowners Association. 50-something, always in activewear, always walking her dog even though she never picked up after it. She ran the wall like a private fiefdom. Marcus had tried to be polite when they first met, offering a friendly hello and even helping her with some heavy bags once. She repaid him with a tight-lipped smile and an unsolicited copy of the WA guidelines. Marcus quickly learned that Karen didn't see him as a neighbor, she saw him as an intruder. She sent him multiple emails about his unsightly doormat, which simply said welcome. She complained about the noise when his niece came over one afternoon, even though they were just watching a movie indoors. But the real issue came with the hot tub. According to the WA, the hot tub was communal property, shared by the 6 homes in the cluster. But from the first week Marcus moved in, Karen acted like it belonged solely to her and her chosen circle of friends. Every Saturday evening, like clockwork, she would host small gatherings of wine-drinking, gossip-loving women who'd monopolize the tub for hours. That was fine, Marcus figured. Everyone had a right to use it. But it didn't take long before things turned ugly. One Saturday, Marcus came out around 9 p.m. with a towel draped over his shoulder, ready to unwind. He saw Karen and 3 of her friends already lounging in the tub, glasses of Chardonnay perched on the edges. He gave a polite nod and started walking toward the tub. Karen raised her hand like a crossing guard. "Oh, sorry," she said, not sounding sorry at all. "We're kind of in the middle of a thing." Marcus blinked. "It's a shared space. We're using it right now," Karen replied, smiling tightly. "Maybe come back in, I don't know, an hour or 2. It was the way she said it that stung. Not the words, but the patronizing tone, like he was a servant interrupting her dinner. He didn't argue. He simply nodded and went back inside. He let it go, once. But it kept happening. The next weekend, she had more guests, some who didn't even live in the neighborhood. Marcus overheard them talking loudly, sipping wine and laughing, and at one point, one of them referred to him as the guy who thinks he owns the hot tub now. Karen didn't correct her. By the 3rd week, Marcus noticed something even more infuriating. Karen had begun inviting guests over when he wasn't home, using the hot tub for private parties, and leaving the area a mess: towels tossed on the fence, empty wine bottles on the ground, and food wrappers stuffed behind the utility shed. It was disrespectful, plain and simple. He sent a formal complaint to the WA board. The response came 2 days later, signed by Karen herself. "Your concerns are noted," it read, "but usage of the hot tub remains first come, first serve." It was a blatant abuse of power. He called another board member privately, Mrs. Green, a kind older woman who lived 2 doors down, and asked if anything could be done. She admitted that Karen had a habit of bullying new residents but advised him to choose his battles. That night, Marcus made a decision. He wasn't going to argue. He wasn't going to shout. He was going to get even, legally and smartly. The next morning, Marcus filed a quiet request with the city to review zoning compliance and occupancy rules for shared amenities in residential clusters like theirs. As an architect, he knew exactly how to word it. By the following Friday, a city inspector showed up unexpectedly during one of Karen's private gatherings. Marcus watched from his window as the inspector took photos, questioned the number of guests, and scribbled furious notes. Karen looked flustered, standing in a robe with a towel on her head, arguing with the man. The report came back 2 days later. Unauthorized guests, possible unlicensed events, and failure to maintain sanitation around a communal facility. The WA received a formal warning and a fine. Karen tried to downplay it in the next email, calling it a misunderstanding, but Marcus knew better. She was rattled. Still, she didn't stop. So Marcus took it a step further. He installed a camera overlooking the hot tub area, well within his rights, and clearly marked as security monitoring. The next time Karen brought guests, they arrived in a rowdy group, setting up a speaker, playing loud music, and pouring wine into plastic cups. Marcus clipped the video, muted it, and sent it to the HOA board with a timestamp and a short message. Unauthorized party, non-residents using private property under board members' watch. This time, more neighbors spoke up. One neighbor, a young mom named Julia, wrote back saying her kids had stopped using the backyard because of the ladies' night club happening every weekend. Another complained about finding glass shards near the tub. The pressure built. Karen was issued a formal warning. Her guests were barred from using HOA facilities. She tried to play the victim, accusing Marcus of targeting her. But the evidence was overwhelming. For the first time since moving in, Marcus stepped into the hot tub one evening and found it empty, clean, and peaceful. The air was crisp, the stars were bright, and no Chardonnay bottles were in sight. He leaned back, closed his eyes, and let the warm water melt away weeks of frustration. Karen had pushed him too far. But she'd forgotten one important thing: he wasn't just another neighbor. He was smart, calm, and he knew how to fight back the right way. Weeks passed after the final HOA warning, and the atmosphere in the neighborhood began to shift. The hot tub was no longer occupied every weekend by Karen's unofficial wine club. The backyard felt more like the shared space it was meant to be. Neighbors actually started using it again, and Marcus noticed families and couples enjoying the space without fear of being glared at or dismissed. For the first time since moving in, he began to feel like this neighborhood could truly be home. But Karen wasn't done. One Friday afternoon, Marcus came home to find a notice taped to his door. It was another HOA violation, this time for unauthorized surveillance equipment. The security camera he had mounted, which only monitored the hot tub area, was now being questioned. The notice demanded its removal within 48 hours. It was signed by Karen again, but this time, the signature included a smug little note: HOA Board Chair, Acting President pending election. Marcus smirked. Of course, she was clinging to power like a barnacle on a sinking ship. But Marcus wasn't going to be bullied. Instead of reacting emotionally, he responded calmly with a letter citing the local legal statutes that allowed homeowners to install cameras on their own property, especially in cases of security and HOA disputes. He attached a copy of the original HOA guidelines, highlighting the section on property boundaries and the rights of homeowners. He CC'd the rest of the board. The next day, he received a brief reply: "Thank you for the clarification. No further action necessary. No apology. No acknowledgement. Just quiet backtracking." Still, Karen's passive-aggressive campaign continued. She started nitpicking other things: Marcus's recycling bin placement, the type of potted plants on his porch, even the way his grass was cut. Every week brought a new complaint, and though most were quickly dismissed, the pattern was clear: she wanted him gone, or at least miserable. Marcus wasn't intimidated. He had learned to anticipate her moves. So he went further, not out of spite, but principle. He began attending HOA meetings regularly. At first, people barely noticed him. But as he spoke calmly, offering useful suggestions and actual solutions, like better maintenance schedules for the lawn service and clear signage for visitor parking, people began to listen. Slowly, the tide turned. The other board members, previously passive or intimidated by Karen, began to nod along with Marcus's points. His voice carried weight, not because it was loud, but because it made sense. Karen noticed. She started interrupting him during meetings, talking over him, rolling her eyes, even accusing him of trying to turn the board against her. But it was clear. She was losing her grip. One of her longtime allies, a man named Dennis from Unit 5, quietly approached Marcus after a meeting and said, "She's ruled this place like a queen for too long." About time someone stood up. Marcus only smiled. "It's not about power. I just want peace and fairness." Dennis nodded. "That's exactly why you should run for the board." At first, Marcus hesitated. He didn't move to this neighborhood to play politics. But the more he thought about it, the more he realized that change wouldn't stick unless someone stepped up. He filed his candidacy a week later. Karen lost her mind. She posted flyers, literal printed flyers, around the neighborhood warning residents of agendas being pushed by new residents with no appreciation for community tradition. She implied Marcus was trying to turn the WA into a courtroom. She even started spreading rumors that he was trying to sue the board. It was classic fearmongering, but it backfired. At the next meeting, more residents showed up than ever before. Julia, the young mom, stood up and publicly supported Marcus, sharing how uncomfortable she had felt bringing her children outside during Karen's noisy parties. An older couple from across the complex chimed in, saying they appreciated how Marcus treated everyone with respect and made real contributions. When it came time to vote, the results weren't even close. Marcus was elected to the board by a large margin. Karen's position as acting president ended abruptly, and the board unanimously voted in a new interim president until the next annual election. Karen didn't even show up to the next meeting. Despite the victory, Marcus didn't gloat. He kept things professional. He worked to ensure meetings were organized and fair, communications were timely and respectful, and shared spaces were properly managed. With his influence, the WA finally set clear rules for guest use of the hot tub, a guest limit per household, cleanup guidelines, and sign-up scheduling to prevent monopolization. Life settled into a rhythm. One evening, about 2 months after the election, Marcus was relaxing in the hot tub again. The sky was painted in streaks of orange and lavender, and the air smelled of freshly mowed grass. Just as he closed his eyes, he heard footsteps. Opening them, he saw Karen walking toward the tub area, towel in hand, alone for once. She paused at the gate and gave a tight smile. "Mind if I use it for a bit?" Marcus considered her for a moment. "It's a shared space," he said simply. She nodded, stepping in slowly. For a few minutes, they sat in silence, the bubbling water the only sound between them. Finally, she spoke. "You got what you wanted. Congratulations." Marcus didn't look at her. "What I wanted was fairness." She scoffed lightly, then leaned back. "You know, I've lived here for 12 years. No one ever questioned me before." "That was the problem," he replied calmly. Another pause. Then, unexpectedly, she said, "Maybe I got too used to being in charge." Marcus gave a small nod, not to agree but to acknowledge the rare moment of honesty. They sat like that, neighbors, nothing more, nothing less. After that night, Karen kept to herself. She still walked her dog and attended meetings occasionally, but the tension was gone. Her reign was over, and the community was stronger for it. Marcus didn't become president of the WA, nor did he want to. But he remained on the board and helped usher in a new chapter for the neighborhood, one where everyone, regardless of race or background, was treated with respect. And every Friday night, as he soaked in the warm waters under the open sky, he knew he'd earned more than just a seat on a board. He had earned his peace.